In the middle of the summer of 2021, the Blackwood Forest was alive with the sounds of nature. Birds sang from the tall trees, leaves rustled gently in the soft breeze, and the sun filtered through the thick green canopy, creating patches of warm light on the forest floor. This forest was huge and dense, covering many miles, and it was known for being wild and sometimes dangerous. People loved to visit for hiking and camping, but they also respected it because the forest could be unpredictable. It was a place where nature ruled, and humans had to be careful. Michael Hayes was a forest ranger who had spent most of his life working in places like this. He was strong, brave, and very skilled. Michael knew every corner of Blackwood Forest better than anyone else. He was the kind of man who loved the forest like it was his home, and he felt a deep responsibility to protect it. Every day he would patrol the forest trails, check on the wildlife, make sure campers were safe, and help people who got lost or hurt. He was respected by his co-workers and loved by the local community. Everyone trusted Michael to keep the forest safe. On the morning of June 15, 2021, Michael woke up early and prepared for his patrol. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in pink and orange. He packed his backpack with everything he might need: water, food, a first aid kit, a map, and his radio to stay in touch with the ranger station. He wore his uniform and sturdy boots, ready to walk long distances. Before leaving, he checked his equipment carefully because he knew the forest could be tough. His family wished him well, telling him to be safe, and he smiled, promising to return by evening. Michael started his patrol on a trail he had taken many times before. This path went deep into the heart of the Blackwood Forest, where the trees grew taller and the wilderness was thicker. As he walked, he listened carefully to the sounds around him: the crunch of leaves under his boots, the distant call of an owl, and the faint movement of small animals in the bushes. He was alert, always paying attention to the environment. Sometimes he would stop to check animal tracks or signs of damage caused by weather or people. Around midday, Michael reached an area of the forest that was less familiar to others, but well known to him. It was a beautiful but wild section, full of old trees covered in moss, small streams, and rocky hills. He planned to inspect this area because there had been reports of some hikers who had gotten lost here before. The forest was tricky in this part. The trails were narrow and easy to miss, and it was easy to become disoriented if someone didn't pay attention. Michael took out his map and compass to make sure he was on the right path. He marked some notes in his small notebook, recording the state of the trails and any signs of recent human activity. Everything seemed normal, but the forest was quiet, almost too quiet. There were no birds singing now, and the air felt heavier. Michael noticed this, but kept moving forward, trusting his experience. As the afternoon went on, Michael decided to take a break near a small stream. He sat on a large rock, drinking water and eating a sandwich. He looked around, enjoying the peacefulness, but also stayed watchful. The forest could change quickly. After resting, he packed up and continued his patrol. He planned to cover a few more miles before heading back to the ranger station. However, something unexpected happened. When Michael reached a fork in the trail, the path he intended to take was blocked by a fallen tree. This was unusual. He knew the forest well, and this tree must have fallen recently, perhaps during a storm the previous week. Instead of turning back, Michael decided to find a way around it. He stepped off the trail, carefully pushing through thick bushes and vines. The ground was uneven, and the forest seemed denser here, but Michael was confident he could navigate it. As he moved deeper into the underbrush, the sun started to sink lower in the sky, and the shadows grew longer. The forest became darker and cooler. Michael's radio, which he usually used to check in with the ranger station, began to lose signal. He tried calling, but all he heard was static. This was not unusual in some parts of the forest, but it made communication difficult. Michael kept walking, hoping to find the trail again soon. But the more he moved through the thick trees, the more he realized he might be off course. The forest floor was covered with leaves and twigs, making it hard to see any clear path. He used his compass to guide himself, but the dense trees and hills made it tricky to get his bearings. By late afternoon, a light fog began to settle in. The mist made the forest look even more mysterious, and Michael knew it was time to head back before it got dark. But as he tried to retrace his steps, he realized something was wrong. He couldn't find the trail. The forest seemed to have swallowed the path completely. Michael tried to stay calm. He was trained for situations like this. He stopped and used his whistle, hoping someone nearby would hear it. Then he tried to use his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The sun was setting fast, and darkness was approaching. The forest, once peaceful, now felt intimidating. At the ranger station, Michael's failure to check in on time started to worry everyone. His supervisor called the search and rescue team, and a message was sent out to volunteers. People organized search parties, ready to comb through the forest looking for any sign of Michael. They brought search dogs, drones, and helicopters, hoping to find him quickly. The next few days were filled with hope and tension. Search teams spread out in every direction, calling his name and scanning the forest from above. Volunteers set up camps and hotlines for tips. The news reported about the missing ranger, and many locals joined the effort. Michael's family waited anxiously, clinging to every update. But despite the large-scale search, no sign of Michael was found. The forest seemed to keep its secret. No footprints, no broken branches, no dropped equipment. Nothing that could explain what happened. Some wondered if Michael had fallen into a ravine or been hurt by wildlife. Others feared the worst. Yet, there was no proof. Days turned into weeks, and the search slowed down. The forest's size and complexity made it almost impossible to find. One person lost in its depths. The community was heartbroken, but they never forgot Michael. Stories of his courage and dedication spread, and people hoped he was still alive somewhere in the forest. The disappearance became a mystery, talked about in towns near Blackwood and among hikers who loved the forest. Some said they felt a strange presence in the woods, like the forest was keeping Michael's spirit. Others believed he had survived longer than anyone thought. For 2 years, the forest kept quiet about what really happened to Michael Hayes. His story was one of bravery, love for nature, and a reminder of how powerful and unpredictable the wild can be. Even as time passed, his disappearance remained a mystery waiting to be solved. After Michael Hayes disappeared, the small town near Blackwood Forest was shaken to its core. Everyone knew Michael, not just as the forest ranger, but as a kind, brave man who had spent years protecting the wilderness and the people who loved it. His sudden disappearance was like a shadow over the whole community. People who used to see him daily on patrol or at the local store now spoke quietly about the mystery that had taken him away. The search for Michael went on for weeks after he vanished, but the longer time passed, the less hope people had of finding him alive. At first, search teams believed that because he was so experienced, he must be somewhere safe, maybe trapped, but still alive. They imagined him surviving somehow, using his knowledge of the forest to protect himself. So the rescue teams worked hard, scanning every part of Blackwood Forest. They walked miles on foot, checked every cave, and looked around every hill. They even brought in helicopters to fly over the dense treetops, hoping to spot some sign of him. But the forest was vast and confusing. Its size was hard to understand if you didn't know it well. Blackwood was not like a small park or a backyard forest. It was a huge, wild place, filled with dangers like steep cliffs, deep rivers, and thick underbrush. Even the best search teams struggled to cover it all. Michael's footprints, his clothes, or any clue that he had passed through just seemed to disappear. As the days turned into weeks, people started to talk. Some thought Michael had been attacked by a wild animal. Others whispered about strange things they had heard happening in the forest. Strange noises, mysterious lights, or shadows moving where they shouldn't. Some feared he might have fallen into a hidden hole or deep ravine that no one knew about. But there was no proof. The forest kept its secrets, and no one could say for sure what had happened. Michael's family was heartbroken. His wife Anna and their 2 children waited every day for news. They stayed strong in public, but inside, they lived with pain and worry. Anna would often visit the forest edge, hoping to catch a glimpse of Michael or find some sign he was still alive. His parents prayed every night, and his friends kept looking, refusing to give up. Meanwhile, local authorities continued the search, but as months passed, the official efforts slowed down. The case began to go cold because the forest was just too big and too wild. Without any clues, it was almost impossible to find a single lost person, even one as skilled as Michael. The search teams had to focus on other emergencies, but they never stopped thinking about Michael. The community, however, never forgot him. People shared stories about his courage and kindness. Hikers who had met Michael told how he had helped them find their way or taught them about the forest. School children drew pictures of him, and local newspapers ran stories about the ranger who had disappeared, keeping his memory alive. A small group of hikers, inspired by Michael's story, decided to do something special. They were a mix of young and old, people who loved exploring the forest and learning its secrets. They had heard the rumors and legends about Michael, and they wanted to try to find out what had really happened. These hikers were not official searchers. They were adventurers who felt a deep respect for Michael and the wilderness. They planned carefully. They studied old maps, read Michael's past patrol reports, and talked to the people who knew him best. They wanted to follow the trails he might have taken on that fateful day. Their goal was not only to solve the mystery, but also to honor Michael's memory by exploring the forest responsibly. In early 2023, 2 years after Michael disappeared, this group set off on their expedition. They carried cameras, GPS devices, and enough supplies to spend days in the forest. They walked through thick brush and crossed small streams, paying attention to every detail: broken branches, unusual footprints, and any signs of human presence. The forest was as beautiful as ever, with tall trees, wildflowers, and fresh air, but it also felt mysterious and a little dangerous. One afternoon, while hiking near an old part of the forest that few people visited, the group found something strange on the forest floor. Partly covered by moss and leaves, hidden in a small hollow between the roots of a giant tree, was a small box. It looked old and weathered by time. Curiosity took over, and the hikers carefully picked it up. Inside, they discovered a few personal items that shocked them: Michael's ranger journal, a map, and some other small belongings. The discovery was incredible. It meant that Michael had been in this part of the forest, and he had left something behind. His journal, filled with handwritten notes and sketches, told stories about his work, the animals he had seen, and the challenges he faced. But it also had strange entries written in the days after his disappearance. These entries hinted at struggles and survival efforts no one knew about before. The hikers took the box and its contents to the local authorities and Michael's family. The journal gave new hope to everyone. It was like hearing Michael's voice again, telling the story of what he had faced in the forest. Experts examined the map and notes, trying to understand the clues hidden within. Michael's journal described his deep knowledge of the forest, including secret trails and hidden places that few people had ever seen. He wrote about the beauty of the wilderness, but also about dangers, steep cliffs, sudden storms, and wild animals. The journal showed that Michael had been trying to find a safe way out after he got lost. It revealed his strong will to survive despite the difficulties. The small box also contained a rusted metal container. Inside was a compass that had stopped working and a signal device that was damaged. It seemed Michael had tried to call for help, but his equipment had failed. This explained why he had not been able to contact the ranger station after he went off the trail. The hikers' discovery brought new energy to the search. People who had given up started to believe again that Michael's story was not over. Teams returned to the forest, this time focusing on the area described in the journal. The search was more careful and guided by Michael's own words. They explored caves, tunnels, and hidden spots he had mapped. Michael's story inspired not only rescuers but also ordinary people. His bravery and dedication became a symbol of hope and respect for nature. The forest was no longer just a place of mystery, but a place where one man's courage was remembered and honored. At the same time, questions remained. What had really happened to Michael after he disappeared? How long had he survived in the forest? Had he found shelter in the caves? These questions drove the search teams and the hikers to look deeper, uncovering more secrets hidden in the shadows of the Blackwood Forest. The mystery of Michael's disappearance became a story told in the local town and beyond. It was a story of a man who loved the wild, who fought to survive, and who left behind clues that would one day help others understand the forest's true nature. It was a story about hope, loss, and the power of human spirit. Michael's family found some comfort in knowing that their loved one had not been forgotten. His wife Anna spoke publicly about how much Michael had loved his job and the forest. She encouraged others to learn from his experience and respect the wilderness. His children grew up hearing stories of their father's bravery and kindness, proud of the man who had vanished but never truly disappeared from their hearts. The hikers who had found the journal became local heroes. They continued exploring and documenting the forest, sharing their findings with the community. Their discovery helped improve safety for future hikers and rangers by identifying dangerous spots and creating better maps. Even the authorities changed how they approached search and rescue missions in wild places. They learned from Michael's story that no matter how skilled someone is, nature can be unpredictable. New technology and careful planning became more important, and the forest was monitored more closely. For many, Michael's story was a lesson in patience and perseverance. It showed that sometimes answers come slowly and unexpectedly. The forest that had swallowed him remained mysterious, but it also revealed a hidden tale of courage, survival, and hope that would inspire generations to come. 2 years after his disappearance, Michael Hayes was not just a missing ranger. He was a symbol of the deep connection between humans and nature, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the light of hope can still shine. His story was still unfolding, and the forest still held its secrets, waiting for those brave enough to uncover them. 2 years had passed since Michael Hayes, the brave forest ranger, vanished into the dense wilderness of Blackwood Forest. During this time, many had tried to find him, but the forest kept its secrets hidden beneath its towering trees and thick underbrush. The community never stopped hoping, but the mystery grew deeper as months turned into years. Michael's disappearance had become almost a legend, a story whispered by locals, shared around campfires, and told to new hikers as a warning and a tribute. Then, on a bright summer day in 2023, a group of hikers set out on a journey deep into the Blackwood Forest. They were not ordinary hikers. These people had followed Michael's story closely. Some had joined previous search efforts, others had spent hours studying maps and his old patrol reports. They wanted to honor Michael's memory by exploring the parts of the forest he had loved and protected. The group moved carefully, carrying their backpacks filled with supplies, cameras, and tools. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, the songs of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the soft babbling of streams. Sunlight filtered through the tall trees, creating a patchwork of light and shadow on the forest floor. But the forest was also mysterious. It held a quiet power, as if it was watching the hikers as they moved through its depths. As the group traveled, they followed trails that Michael had once patrolled, but they also ventured into less-known areas, places Michael had described in his journal and map. They walked past giant trees with thick roots twisting across the ground, crossed narrow wooden bridges over streams, and climbed steep rocky hills. The forest was beautiful but challenging, demanding respect and careful attention. One afternoon, as the hikers moved through a particularly dense part of the forest, their eyes caught something unusual near the base of a huge old oak tree. It was partly hidden by moss and fallen leaves, almost blending into the natural forest floor. Curious, one of the hikers bent down and carefully cleared away the leaves. Underneath, they found a small wooden box, weathered by time and covered in dirt. Excitement and a little nervousness filled the group. They knew that finding something in this remote area was rare. Slowly, they opened the box, revealing its contents. Inside were several personal belongings: a worn leather journal, a folded map, some old photographs, and a small rusted metal container. The discovery was astonishing. They realized immediately that these belonged to Michael Hayes. His ranger journal was well known to the local authorities and his family, and the handwriting inside the notebook was unmistakably his. The hikers had found a part of Michael's story that no one had seen before, a hidden chapter waiting to be read. The journal was filled with notes about the forest, written during Michael's patrols. It included descriptions of animal behavior, weather patterns, and changes in the environment. But more importantly, the journal contained entries written during the time after Michael disappeared, entries that revealed his thoughts, his struggles, and his efforts to survive in the wilderness. The hikers carefully examined the journal. Michael wrote about how, after losing the trail, he had tried to find shelter and food. He described the days when he faced hunger and cold, and the nights when the sounds of the forest were both frightening and strangely comforting. He wrote about the animals he saw: deer, foxes, and even a curious black bear that had passed by without noticing him. One of the most surprising parts of the journal was Michael's notes about a hidden area of the forest, secret caves and tunnels that he had discovered earlier but never told anyone about. He believed these caves might offer shelter and protection in an emergency. Michael had written detailed descriptions and even drawn maps of these underground places. The hikers were amazed. This was information no one had known before, and it could explain how Michael had survived longer than anyone expected. The small metal container inside the box held a compass and a distress signal device. The compass was broken, and the signal device was old and rusted. Michael's journal explained that he had tried to use the signal to call for help, but it had failed. This was why no one had heard from him after he lost the trail. It was a heartbreaking detail, showing how close Michael had been to rescue, but also how nature had taken control. The hikers brought the box and its contents to the local ranger station and to Michael's family. The news spread quickly. For the first time in 2 years, there was new hope. Michael's journal was published, and experts began studying the maps and notes carefully. The discovery gave fresh energy to the search efforts and inspired many people who had been waiting for answers. Using Michael's journal as a guide, search teams returned to the forest, focusing on the areas he had described: the hidden caves and tunnels deep in Blackwood. They found places they had never explored before, natural shelters carved into the rocky hillsides. Inside the caves, the temperature was cooler, and the air was still. The searchers found evidence that someone had lived there: makeshift bedding, empty food containers, and small tools left behind. Experts believed that Michael had used these caves to survive, hiding from the dangers of the forest and waiting for rescue. The caves were difficult to find and easy to miss, especially if you didn't know where to look. Michael's journal was the key that unlocked the secret entrance to these hidden shelters. The discovery was a turning point. It showed that Michael had been incredibly brave and resourceful. Despite the hardships, he had survived longer than anyone thought possible, using his knowledge of the forest and his skills to adapt to the wild environment. The journal also revealed Michael's thoughts and feelings during his time in the forest. He wrote about loneliness, fear, hope, and determination. His words were honest and moving, showing the human side of survival. The journal was more than just a record of events. It was a story of courage and resilience, Michael's family found comfort in these writings. They could imagine what he had gone through and how hard he had fought to stay alive. The journal became a treasure, a link to the man they loved and missed so much. The hikers who had found the box became local heroes. They continued exploring the forest, sharing their findings and helping to map the hidden trails and caves. Their discovery helped improve safety for future hikers and rangers. The maps they created showed dangerous areas and safe shelters, making the forest more understandable and less threatening. The story of Michael Hayes spread beyond the local town. It inspired writers, filmmakers, and adventurers. People admired his bravery and his deep connection to nature. Michael became a symbol of the human spirit's strength and the mysterious beauty of the wilderness. Scientists and forest experts used Michael's notes to study the forest environment. His observations helped them understand animal behavior, weather changes, and the effects of human activity on the wilderness. His journal became a valuable resource for conservation efforts. The discovery also changed how authorities prepared for emergencies in the forest. They improved communication systems, trained rangers to use new survival tools, and created better plans for search and rescue missions. Michael's experience taught them important lessons about the dangers of wilderness and the importance of being prepared. For the community, Michael's story was a source of pride and inspiration. Memorials were set up in his honor, and annual hikes were organized to remember him. Schools taught children about his life and the importance of respecting nature. The forest trails he had once patrolled were named after him, ensuring his legacy would never be forgotten. The mystery of Michael's disappearance was not completely solved, but the discovery of his journal and belongings brought light to the darkest parts of the story. It revealed a man who had faced incredible challenges with courage and hope. It showed the power of nature and the resilience of the human spirit. The forest remained wild and unpredictable, but it also became a place of remembrance and respect. Michael Hayes's journey through Blackwood Forest was a reminder that even in the greatest struggles, there is strength to be found. 2 years after he vanished, Michael's story was still unfolding. The hiker's discovery opened new doors to understanding, and the search for answers continued. The forest held many secrets, but Michael's legacy was now part of its story, a story of survival, mystery, and the enduring bond between a man and the wild. Absolutely. Here's an expanded, simple, and engaging explanation of Part 4. About 3,000 words, written in third-person style and without headings. After the hikers discovered Michael Hayes's hidden box, with the journal and personal belongings, deep in Blackwood Forest, the whole community was filled with a mixture of hope, curiosity, and sadness. The journal had opened a new window into what Michael experienced during those dark days when he was lost. It told a story of survival, struggle, and an unbreakable spirit that refused to give up. But there were still many questions left unanswered. Where exactly had Michael been during those long weeks? What else had he faced that the journal did not reveal? The discovery became the spark for a new phase in the search and investigation. Local authorities, forest experts, and even outside specialists came together, working closely with Michael's family and the group of hikers who had found the box. Together they planned to explore the mysterious hidden caves and tunnels that Michael had written about. They hoped these places might hold more clues, maybe even answers to the most difficult questions. The forest itself was as wild and untouched as ever. It was a living, breathing world full of strange sounds and delicate beauty. Tall trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves whispering in the wind. Birds flew overhead, and small animals scurried through the underbrush. But the forest was also dangerous. It could hide deep ravines, sudden drops, and rocky terrain that was easy to slip on or fall from. The same forest that gave life could take it away in a moment. The search teams began their careful exploration of the caves Michael had marked in his journal. These were not ordinary caves. They were narrow tunnels carved over thousands of years, by water and wind, twisting beneath the forest floor. Some caves had small openings hidden behind thick roots or moss, making them almost invisible. The teams had to crawl through tight spaces, use ropes to descend rocky walls, and carry flashlights to see in the darkness. Inside the caves, the air was cool and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling, creating soft echoes. The teams moved slowly, listening carefully to every sound. In some places, the ground was covered with smooth stones or patches of soft moss. The caves felt like another world, quiet and mysterious. During their explorations, the teams found signs that someone had stayed in these caves for a long time. Old fire pits made from stones, bones of small animals, and simple tools were scattered around. These were the marks of survival, evidence that Michael had managed to make shelter and find food. In one small chamber, they found a makeshift bed made of leaves and branches, just like Michael had described in his journal. Finding these shelters was both thrilling and heartbreaking. It showed how close Michael had come to safety and how he had used his skills to survive. But it also reminded everyone of the hardships he faced. The forest was unforgiving. Every day, Michael had to find food, stay warm, and avoid danger. The caves provided shelter but were not comfortable or safe from all threats. The teams also found some of Michael's equipment left behind in the caves: a broken pocket knife, a torn piece of his jacket, and fragments of his camping gear. These items told a story of determination but also of struggle and wear. Michael had pushed himself to the limits, facing exhaustion and injury. The discoveries made headlines and attracted attention from media and experts worldwide. People were fascinated by the story of the ranger who had survived in the wild for so long, leaving behind a trail of clues in the forest. Documentaries were made, and researchers came to Blackwood to study the environment and the survival techniques Michael used. One of the most touching parts of this new investigation was the involvement of Michael's family. Anna, Michael's wife, joined some of the expeditions. She wanted to see the places where Michael had lived and fought for survival. Walking through the forest, standing near the caves, and holding the journal in her hands gave her a deeper connection to her husband's experience. It was painful but healing, a way to understand and honor his courage. The children, though young, were proud of their father's bravery. They learned from their mother about how Michael had faced the unknown with strength. The family became a symbol of hope and resilience for the community. Their story touched many hearts and inspired others to face their own challenges with courage. While exploring the caves and surrounding forest, the teams made another surprising discovery: a series of markings carved into the rock walls. These were faint scratches, some shaped like arrows, others like symbols. Experts believed these were signs left by Michael, a way to communicate directions or warnings. They showed his clear thinking and planning even in difficult conditions. These carvings helped the teams map the underground tunnels more accurately. The arrows pointed toward safer exits or places where Michael had found food or water. The symbols seemed to be a code only Michael understood, reflecting his deep knowledge of the forest and survival. The search teams realized that Michael had been not just lost, but actively exploring the underground world, looking for ways to survive and escape. His journey had taken him through dangerous, unknown paths. He had been a man fighting not only nature, but also his own fears and limits. The journal also revealed Michael's reflections on nature and life. Despite the hardships, he wrote beautifully about the forest's beauty: the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, the sounds of birds at dawn, and the peacefulness of a quiet night. These entries showed his deep respect for the wilderness, even when it was harsh and unforgiving. Michael's writings also touched on loneliness and hope. He expressed how much he missed his family, but also how he believed they would never give up on him. He found strength in memories and in his determination to survive for them. This emotional honesty made his story relatable to many people who read the journal. The forest itself seemed to respond to Michael's presence. The hikers and searchers often spoke about feeling a special connection in the caves and trails he had marked. It was as if the forest was holding on to his spirit, honoring the man who had loved and respected it. As the search continued, teams expanded their efforts to other parts of the forest, guided by the clues in the journal. They found new paths, hidden clearings, and small streams Michael had written about. Each discovery added pieces to the puzzle, helping everyone understand the full story of what had happened. The authorities used this new information to improve safety measures for future forest visitors. They created better maps, posted warning signs near dangerous areas, and introduced new survival training for rangers. Michael's experience became a lesson in preparation and respect for nature. The local community embraced Michael's legacy. Memorials were built near the forest entrance, and an annual hike was established in his honor. The event brought people together to celebrate his life and the spirit of adventure he embodied. The hikers who found the box continued their explorations, sharing stories and photos with the world. Their discovery had sparked a renewed interest in Blackwood Forest, encouraging others to learn about its wonders and dangers. Michael Hayes's story touched people worldwide. It was a tale of bravery, survival, and the deep bond between humans and nature. His journey through the forest was a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope and courage can guide us. Though the mystery of his disappearance was still not fully solved, the discoveries brought peace and understanding. Michael was no longer just a missing ranger. He was a symbol of resilience and respect for the wild. The forest kept its secrets, but it also shared a part of Michael's story, inspiring all who heard it. His legacy lived on in the hearts of his family, the community, and the many people who continued to explore and protect the beautiful, mysterious Blackwood Forest. The story of Michael Hayes had captured the hearts and minds of many people by the time Part 5 began. After the discovery of his hidden box with the journal and belongings, and the exploration of the caves where he had survived, the world was watching closely. The search for answers was far from over, but hope was stronger than ever. Michael was no longer just a missing forest ranger. He had become a symbol of courage, endurance, and the deep connection between humans and the wild. As the investigation continued, new questions came to the surface. What had really happened in the final days before Michael disappeared? Had he found a way out of the forest? Was he still alive somewhere, or had nature finally claimed him? These questions pushed the searchers, Michael's family, and the community to keep looking, hoping for a breakthrough. Using the detailed maps and notes Michael left behind, search teams carefully retraced his final movements. The journal had stopped suddenly at one point, leaving a mystery as to what had happened after the last entry. Some experts believed that Michael had planned a final attempt to leave the caves and find help, while others thought he might have been trapped in a part of the forest no one had explored yet. The search teams faced many challenges. Blackwood Forest was vast and wild, with thick undergrowth, rocky cliffs, and unpredictable weather. The terrain was difficult to navigate, even for experienced rangers and hikers. The forest was full of sounds, calls of birds, rustling leaves, distant animal cries, that could easily mask any signs of a person. Each day the searchers pushed forward, driven by hope and the memory of Michael's brave spirit. One day, while exploring a remote valley far from the main trails, a search team found something unexpected: a small campsite hidden beneath a dense canopy of trees. The camp looked old but well used, with signs of a fire pit, scattered food wrappers, and footprints. It was clear someone had stayed there recently. The team carefully examined the site and found a few personal items: a piece of cloth torn from a jacket, a water bottle with initials scratched on it, and a small hand-carved wooden figurine. The initials on the bottle matched Michael's full name. This discovery was a breakthrough, proof that Michael had moved beyond the caves and tried to survive in other parts of the forest. It showed his determination to keep going, even when the situation was desperate. The search team documented the campsite, taking photos and collecting samples. They sent the items to experts for analysis, hoping to learn more about Michael's movements and condition during his last days. The camp gave new hope to Michael's family, who visited the site to feel closer to him and understand his journey better. With this new information, search teams expanded their efforts to surrounding areas, carefully studying the landscape and following possible trails Michael might have used. They discovered more signs, broken branches, marks on trees, and footprints that suggested Michael had been traveling on foot for several days. One of the most incredible finds was a crude shelter made from branches and leaves, hidden in a narrow ravine. The shelter showed signs of being recently occupied and was strong enough to provide protection from rain and cold. Nearby, the teams found scattered supplies, empty food cans, a half-burned candle, and a small notebook with a few handwritten notes. The notes in the small notebook were written in Michael's handwriting. They revealed his thoughts and feelings during those last days. His struggle with fatigue, the pain of loneliness, but also his determination to keep moving. The notebook showed how Michael was trying to stay positive, using memories of his family and his love for the forest to give him strength. The discovery of the shelter and notes brought a sense of closure to some, but it also raised new questions. How long had Michael survived after this? Did he make it out of the forest? Or was he trapped somewhere else? The search teams knew that finding Michael's final location was essential to answer these questions and bring peace to his family and community. Technology became a powerful tool in the search. Drones equipped with cameras flew over difficult terrain, scanning areas that were hard to reach by foot. Thermal imaging helped locate heat signatures in the forest, looking for signs of life. Satellite images were analyzed for changes in the forest canopy that might indicate movement or human activity. The use of technology combined with the traditional search efforts helped create a more complete picture of Michael's possible path. It showed how he had moved through dense forest patches, crossed streams, and climbed hills. Each piece of information was carefully mapped and shared with search teams and experts. At the same time, the community rallied around Michael's family. Fundraisers were held to support the search and help with expenses. Volunteers joined organized hikes and searches, offering their time and energy to find answers. The story of the missing ranger had united people, reminding them of the power of hope and community. Meanwhile, Michael's family found strength in their memories and the new discoveries. Anna, his wife, spoke publicly about her husband's courage and the importance of never giving up. She became an advocate for forest safety and survival education, helping raise awareness about the dangers of wilderness and the need for preparedness. The children, growing up with stories of their father's bravery, also became involved. They learned survival skills, studied the forest, and shared their father's story with others. Their resilience inspired many, showing that even in loss, hope and love could grow. As months passed, the search continued, but no direct sign of Michael was found. The mystery remained unsolved. Yet the discoveries, his journal, the caves, the campsites, the notes, painted a powerful picture of a man who faced unimaginable challenges with bravery and determination. The forest held its secrets tightly, but it also shared pieces of Michael's story, helping everyone understand the strength of the human spirit and the beauty and danger of nature. Michael Hayes's journey became a legend, a story passed from one generation to the next, teaching lessons of courage, respect, and hope. In the end, while Michael's physical presence was lost in the vastness of Blackwood Forest, his spirit lived on. The forest became a place of remembrance and learning, where his story inspired new rangers, hikers, and nature lovers. His legacy was not just about survival, but about the deep connection between humans and the wild world. The story reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest adventure is not just about finding a way out, but about discovering who we are inside, how we face fear and uncertainty, and how love and hope can guide us through the darkest times. Michael's journey through Blackwood Forest was a testament to courage, resilience, and the enduring bond between man and nature. A story that would never be forgotten.